At the time of recording this video, I saw Warfare about 2 weeks ago, and the movie is absolutely incredible. There's really no other way I feel comfortable starting this review other than kind of giving my opinion on it up front. Every other hook I could think of for this video felt too over dramatic. Calling it unlike any other war movie I've ever seen is an accurate statement, but it feels so sensational that it feels like I can't be telling the truth, even though the approach to this film is really different than a lot of other war films that we're used to seeing. The emotional why behind this film reduced me to tears, but just saying that makes it seem like it's a tragedy when this film has far too much resilience in its storyline, its plotline, and the veterans that are behind the making of this movie to really just say that it was a sad one. That just doesn't feel honest. For those who haven't noticed, promotion from basically every young up-and-coming actor or heartthrob promoting this film, Warfare follows the real-time, true story of a U.S. Navy SEAL platoon during an Iraq war mission. Mendoza, who is the director of this film, was one of the members of this platoon. The film is based off his memory of the events that unfolded in order to portray the event to one of his friends in the platoon who has no recollection of this particular mission. He has no memory of it, and that's why a lot of these promos will say for Elliot. I have a hard time saying that this isn't the best war film I've ever seen. And I know I just talked a lot about using sensational language, and I feel like I've tried to be way more nuanced and not as this movie's so great or this movie's so bad in a lot of my more recent reviews. But the punch that this movie packs in its emotional brutality, it takes away all of the cinematic moments that I think we're used to seeing in war films. I think we take for granted big one-er shots like in 1917, which I think is a great film, or we focus on the really epic blockbuster moments of a movie like Top Gun, whereas this movie in so many ways just feels more grounded. It doesn't have a thesis of the brotherhood created by the terrifying brutality of war is unbreakable, and it doesn't remind you the events unfolding will impact these men's lives forever. The movie really focuses on the as it happens nature of a specific mission. It doesn't take into account the war at large or the events pre the conflict, why these soldiers are even fighting, what their life is like back home, and it certainly doesn't follow them after the events. It's really centered on a several hour mission that you watch unfold in the film real time. I think this kind of realness that the movie is so focused in being grounded on, being so honest to the veterans who lived through this experience, on their memory, on their events, rather than saying some quippy one-liner or creating some hyper dramatized, like this is this man's best friend from childhood. It really has this effect on the audience that is really captivating because you don't feel like you're getting bombarded with something that didn't actually happen. And not to say that fictional stories that speak to truth are not good. I obviously love a good fictional story. We all know that. But it's so effective and thought-provoking to just say, this is what I remember happening. And I want to be really specific about how the comms sound, how the artillery is handled, how the gear is tracked, applied, worn in the film. I think it's just a wonderful thing. And even though this film is really based on real events, real-time memories, true story, and it comes from this very truly, I feel, veteran perspective, don't let me saying that make you think that this film lacks cinematography or sound design. In fact, the sound design in this film is so incredible. It focuses on the impact to the viewer and what it actually sounds like rather than muffling for we're going into the interior of this character, but actually using it in such a cool way. Like, it's some of the sound design in here was just so striking. Like, that's one of the biggest things I've taken away from the film. And some of the cinematography I think is really beautiful because it's a little bit more simplistic. You're shooting in a real location, and so everything just feels really grounded, central, and you do feel like you're there with these characters. And I think that's kind of how you're supposed to feel. One of the most impactful things about this film, or favorite creative decisions that they made, I will say, is while it's really hard to take a true story like this and say, like, this is the best part to me or this is the best aspect of the film, I do really find that the cast of this film really was thought through very well. Because when you think about who is actually going and fighting wars, international conflicts, military missions, they're young people. They're not typically established people or people who have lived a life up until this point. And I'm not saying there aren't those people, and nor am I saying that younger people going to fight is more noble than people at any age going to fight and defend their country. But specifically focusing on the concept that our wars are typically fought by young men and women, and using young stars to really drive that point home of the way that this conflict will shape these men's lives, or did shape these men's lives, kind of visually seeing how young they are, or seeing an actor who you've watched grown up on screen, or like a young adult heartthrob who you are just obsessed with, seeing them go through this experience does really add to the level of impact that this film has. It feels more real. It feels like you're not just casting someone in a star role and then letting all the other supporting cast be kind of nobodies. They're all this varying level of successful young men coming up. I'm talking Joseph Quinn, Will Poulter, Kit Connor, who actually was at my screening and I freaked out about it, Noah Centineo, Charles Melton, Michael Gandolfini. Like, this is a crazy cast in terms of taking these young actors who people recognize, they know the names of, and putting them in this conflict. The core of the film acknowledges and emphasizes through this cast that soldiers are simultaneously boys and men, fearless and fearful, brothers and strangers, invincible and mortal. And I think you feel that when you're like, oh, this is this character who is carrying this heavy weaponry, but I'm used to seeing them in this cute little rom-com TV show. Or like, I know that that's Human Torch, but in this film, he's being injured by an IED. The film, through that casting, really balances all of that super well. The thing I wanted to end on for this review is that warfare, as I was trying to process it, the thing that kept coming up to mind is a well-known poem. Dulce et decorum est is a poem by Wilfred Owen. It was written after the First World War. It's a poem based on the Latin saying, "It is sweet and proper to die for one's country." And the poem is basically talking about the horrors of war and how we speak of it as an honorable thing to go and fight and defend and die for your country, yet it is gruesome and unglorious. The most impactful to me of this poem has always been the close to last line, which is, "My friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, dulce et decorum est pro patria mori." War movies often focus on this glory moment or the tragedy moment. They're really focused on the highs and lows of war because it's such a immense thing that has shaped so many people's lives. As we've studied mental health further and the actual post-traumatic stress that people in these intense situations can deal with, as we have a better understanding of how veterans are treated in our country after coming home from conflict, specifically in wars that we have fought in more modern times that have been far different from wars of the last 200 years. I think our movies will focus on trying to make a statement about a particular war, or trying to really paint it as this grand thing. And I'm not saying that these are not huge, impactful things, but I hope what I'm communicating is, I think that warfare focuses on that in between. Obviously, there are highs and lows in the film. I'm not trying to say it's like a monotone film, or it's just saying like, war is good or war is bad, but I think it focuses on the immense complexities of being a person in that role, coming from the person that was in that role, not from a director who might have their own opinion, not from a screenwriter who's trying to make some big statement about a current political issue or a past conflict. Instead, this is just the story. At least that seems to be how I understand it. I believe Ray Mendoza when he says that this is his memory, this is his platoon's memory, and this is what the story was. And it makes me think how many other stories are out there that are true stories, that are fascinating, that are interesting, that can be told with nuance, that could be shot beautifully and adapted to screen without changing them, just telling them as they exist. How many of those stories would more accurately portray the lives and experiences of veterans? Because as a person who loves a veteran very dearly, I've always watched movies with a veteran in my life who has pointed out inaccuracies or things that feel way too Hollywood, too dramatized, or just inaccurate rank like conversations, and knowing that this movie is about to come out and be told specifically from that veteran perspective with such care taken to the training of the actors, the specific language used, it makes me really excited to see what the future of movies like this and specifically veterans getting to tell their story will look like. And I want to end this video with a massive thank you to every veteran who has worked on this movie, who has watched this video, who will go to watch this movie, and specifically Ram Mendoza. Thank you for your service. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really feel passionately about this film, and I hope you go to see it in theaters and support it. If you want more reviews like this, please be sure to subscribe. Have an absolutely wonderful day or night whenever you're getting to watch this, and I will see you all in my very next video. Bye, guys.